Hey, everybody. Welcome back once again. This is Marc Lawrence, and we're all set to go against the spread on the college football playoff semifinal weekend, the National Football League first round wildcard games as well. A lot to talk about on the show here today. And with that, we're going to go around the horn and introduce our cast of experts, if I may. Jim Feist from Las Vegas, the legend himself, on the set today. Jim, how are you doing right now?
I'm doing well. We're freezing out here in Las Vegas.
Oh, boy.
It's well, Andy can attest to that. The weather is unbelievable.
What is it?
I heard shouts of anti-M all morning. If you've remembered The Wizard of Oz.
Yes, I do.
Which, by the way, if you get a chance to see it at the Sphere, outstanding production.
I've heard that from a number of people.
Yeah.
Yes.
I would think anything at the Sphere would probably be outstanding just in the production itself.
Yeah.
Just about any.
I won't give away anything, but the special effects are really, really good in that presentation.
Cool. Andy, I don't have to ask how you're doing. Andy M., the Sphere, sounds like you're enjoying Vegas these days.
Well, this was from back in September, I believe. My sister and brother-in-law were in town. And we said, well, let's go check out the Sphere, The Wizard of Oz. We all watched it as kids, and it was a really, it's basically the movie, but they enhance it because not everything that they wanted to show could fit on the small TV screen. And then they had some special effects that the Sphere is known to be able to do. So it's an enjoyable show if you get a chance to see it.
Well, I have not yet made it to the Sphere. I'm going to plan on doing that hopefully my next time in Vegas. Everybody raves about it. And
Mark, you know Slick, right? Jay Slick.
Yes, I do.
I think he's been to several music concerts at the Sphere, so he could probably give you a very good indication of what the sound system is like and all about that. So that was I've not yet been to a concert there, but I'm waiting to find an act that I want to see.
Well, do just that. Greg DePalma, producer extraordinaire, here on the set here today. How was your week last week, Greg? And what are you going to do about the National Football League playoff coming up this weekend?
Well, I think it's going to be actually a great weekend. I was having this brief conversation with Jim about it off the air, texting that I believe this is the best weekend of football all season. You've got more games in the playoffs that you're going to have all season in the NFL. Combine that with the semifinals of the college football playoffs. And I mean, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, what else can you ask for a football fan?
Yeah, really nice. It's all rather condensed in a sense too. We're not watching, 60 games this weekend. We got a handful of really, really good games on both the college and the NFL side of things. I want to welcome our listeners out there for tuning in here to Marc Lawrence Against the Spread podcast. We've been doing this now for well over 20 years. We appreciate your support. We appreciate you joining us here on ProLine TV. And if you're watching the show rather than listening to it, I encourage you to also hit the subscribe button and ring the bell. We would really appreciate you doing just that. And speaking about the National Football League playoffs, guys, before we get into the card, I just want to mention one thing here, that when I was doing our playoff guide newsletter for the Playbook newsletter this week, I came across something very interesting. And it sort of made sense to me that the two teams in the National Football League this year that faced opponents that started the most backup quarterbacks were both Denver and New England.
Yeah.
The two number one seeds, coincidentally, which sort of maybe went a little bit toward their record. They didn't lose a game to any of those backup quarterback teams, and they beat the spread just about almost every time. So, Jim, is that a factor you would consider into this year, the fact that New England played this super soft schedule with these backups, and so too did the Denver Broncos?
Absolutely. I mean, I think strength of schedule, you have to modify the strength of schedule by what quarterbacks were playing. Absolutely, it means something for sure. And by the way, thanks for pointing it out. I kind of wasn't thinking about it that much, but now that you pointed out, I'm going to think about it a little bit more.
Yeah, if you go down and dig, I was not only found out who they were, 6 times Denver, 5 times New England, and then I started breaking out the stats in the football games and started breaking out the spreads, and you knew they were all going to be favorable because these teams had favorable ledgers this year, straight up against the spread and in the stats. So I also think that was an extra additive per se, if you will. Andy, what's your thought about that? Teams taking on soft schedules and making it to the playoffs as opposed to teams that
Well,
face a rugged schedule to get there.
I'm going to add to that. New England had 4 games against teams that are in the playoffs, one of which had a losing record, Carolina. They beat them handily, okay? The other 3 had winning records. They split with Buffalo, and they lost to Pittsburgh because they had a -4 turnover margin in that game. Their opponent this week, the Chargers, played 6 teams that had records of at least more than 2 games above 500. So they played a somewhat more difficult schedule. But New England, I think I mentioned before that I take a look at, I put the teams in the categories A, B, C, based solely on the win-loss record. So there's no subjectivity in the results. I use subjectivity in interpreting the results, perhaps, but not in the results. And I believe it was that I think 10 or 11. I think it was 10 of their 17 games were against teams that finished with records of 6-11 or worse.
Yeah, actually, if you want to just dive into it more, they won 13 of 14 games versus losing teams, and 14 of their 17 opponents were losing teams.
Yeah.
And on the flip side, on the other side of the conference, the Bears, they won their first 7 games versus losing teams. 8 of their 11 wins were against losing teams. And so you have to definitely take that into consideration.
Yeah.
Let me clarify. You said which team did Andy? You confused me with what you said. We're talking about the Patriots.
Yes.
Okay. And what was the number?
Well, I said that they played 4 games against teams that made the playoffs, but there was 3 opponents because they played Buffalo twice, and they split those 2 games, and they were both close games as they turned out. They also lost to Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Okay, that was a 21-14 game, and the Patriots were -4 in turnovers in that game. They had lost 4 fumbles, and I think each team threw an interception, so it was 5-1, -4 for the Patriots. The third team they played, or the 4th game against a team that made the playoffs, was the game against Carolina, which did not have a winning record despite making the playoffs. Okay, so they were actually they're in a Class B category. So they were 2-2 against playoff teams, while one of those wins was against the Panthers.
Okay.
So that's just a further description of the weakness of their schedule, not just by looking at all playoff teams, but taking out the one playoff team that got there despite being 8 and 9.
So of the 12 teams that are playing this weekend, there's 2 bye teams.
Right.
Which ones have the best strength of schedule and have played the best strength of schedule and the worst strength of schedule?
I measure it a little bit differently. I can give you some information how they did against common opponents, which I think is a good measure to a certain. I mean, every measure you have has weaknesses and flaws. But for example, the Rams 7-3 straight up and against the spread against 10 games against opponents also played by Carolina. Panthers were 3-7 in those games, 5-5 against the spread. Both Green Bay and Chicago did extremely well against teams that they each faced. Green Bay was 7-4 straight up. Chicago 8-4 straight up. Chicago had the better point spread record, 7-4-1 versus 5-6-1. Buffalo and Jacksonville both had winning records. They were both 4-2 against the spread. Buffalo 5-1. Jacksonville 4-2. Sanfield were both 3-2 straight up. Chargers 5-1 straight up. New England 4-2 against common opponents. Houston 5-1. And Pittsburgh 3-3 against teams that both teams faced.
That's a good analogy, Andy. I love common opponents. I also like to weigh things about how they fared against other playoff teams as well.
Yeah.
Against teams of their same ilk. And I'll share this with our listeners out there. This comes from this week's Playbook.
By the way, excuse me, before you can,
okay.
but you do include Carolina in that as a playoff team, despite the fact that they had only 8 wins.
Yeah, well, they are in the playoffs. Correct.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So they have to be in there.
Yeah.
So in amongst these versus other fellow playoff teams, the team that fared the poorest was the Pittsburgh Steelers. They faced 6 other playoff teams. They won only 1 game on the scoreboard.
Yep.
1 game against the spread and 1 game in the stats. They were beat 122 yards a game average. Pittsburgh was. It's kind of hard to like this team. And I know what we saw last week. We saw Aaron Rodgers come alive. We saw that home dog, and home dogs in the playoffs are just ungodly. They're 35-15 to the spread, going back since BC, I guess. But nonetheless, Pittsburgh is the worst of versus other fellow playoff teams this year.
By the way, this is a good point to bring that out, because we've heard all week about Pittsburgh's 23 straight Monday night home wins.
Yes.
There's a little asterisk that needs to be included.
What's that?
Back in the COVID year of 2020, Pittsburgh played a Monday game at home against Washington and lost. But it's not included in the way the NFL keeps its historical records. It was postponed from Sunday due to COVID, and they played, I think, at 5 o'clock in the afternoon Eastern time. So it's not concluded as like a Monday night game. It's Monday night game for the streak purposes, and I guess for every other purpose, includes primetime Monday night football, even though it was a Monday night game.
Well, that's an interesting asterisk you mentioned, Andy, here, and I don't know. It should be
it's the Roger Maris asterisk.
Right, a Roger Maris asterisk. Good point. Good way to put that. Yeah. The team that fared the best against other fellow playoff teams, I don't think it's a surprise. The Seattle Seahawks. They went up against 8 other playoff teams. They beat 7 of them on the scoreboard. They went 6-2 against the spread in those games, 6-2 in the stats, and they won the stats an average of 56 net yards a game. A couple of teams that I thought were a little bit.
Didn't they split with both? Didn't they split with both the Rams and the 49ers though? So that would be 2 losses.
Well, I have this.
They lost to San Francisco in week 1, and didn't they lose to Seattle that 2-point game?
And they lost to the Rams in mid-season.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
that's still impressive.
Yeah, but it's still. But I don't know why from our midweek alert newsletter why that showed that, but I'll have to check our stat keeper to find that out, exactly why it showed that, why it didn't show the other loss. Other interesting stats that I thought were jumped off the page a little bit here. There's a lot of commonality here. The Carolina Panthers, as you might expect, didn't fare well against other fellow playoff teams. 2-5 straight up ATS, 1-6 in the stats. They got beat 93 yards a game. New England took care of business in the 4 games they had, 3-1 against the spread, plus in the stats. San Francisco, I was a little bit surprised. They only went 4-4 straight up against the spread in the stats for a negative minus 13 yards. I thought they really fared better than that, San Francisco, but I guess those injuries crept up and ended up biting them a lot in the end there. But the guy that really surprised me was the Green Bay Packers. They went up against 6 other fellow playoff teams. They only won 2 of them straight up and against the spread. And I think what's more alarming to me is the fact that Green Bay enters the playoffs in about as bad a situation as you could want.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I mean, I realize Jordan Love's coming back, but they've lost 4 straight games in a row. And I have to quote my newsletter here to see what it is, but it's terrible, the situation that they happen to be in this particular week. Entering the playoffs on a 4-loss win streak. Well, first of all, let me say this. There have only been 2 teams that have done that. They lost 4 games exactly to end the season, and they both got dumped straight up and against the spread, both losses by 14 points. So,
by the way, while we're on that, did you check the result for 2 straight losses, exactly 2 straight losses? Because that's the situation for their opponent, Chicago.
I did, and it's a good positive stat, Andy. That's a good. I'm glad you mentioned that. It's a good stat for the Chicago Bears. On 2 losses, 4 becomes a problem. It becomes an excuse, if you will. There's something really wrong with the football team. So while 2 losses benefits a playoff team, 4 certainly does not. Jim, how do you feel the Bears and the Packers this week? You got Ben Johnson in his first playoff game. The Packers trying to get healthy, trying to get back to where they were. What do you make of the game and the line per se, Jim? Because this line is a little bit surprising to me that Green Bay is a favorite as we speak.
Well, first of all, Chicago has a better record.
Yes.
A miracle win that they had over the Packers, where they had the well, it was a miracle. Why they're an underdog at home, I don't know. The Green
Experience.
Bay. Well, you could talk about that in almost every game because we have that going on in several of these games. But Chicago, you got a new coach and a very young quarterback. Green Bay is the 7th seed, and each time they've been in the playoffs under the 4, they've been a 7th seed, from what I understand. Now, if they didn't change the rules years ago to add a 7th team, they'd have never made the playoffs because they're always a 7th seed.
Yeah.
So they weren't taking 7 at the time. Now, Green Bay has kind of been a disappointment ever since, Aaron Rodgers left. And I'm not a big Love fan. He's good at times, but very inconsistent. LaFleur is probably on the hot seat if he loses this game. And the way that the coaches are moving around in the league, that's a very good possibility. They could be looking for.
Well, you heard the firing this morning, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
Miami.
Well, they're trying to get in.
Harbaugh sweepstakes.
Well, yeah, they're trying to get in position to get Harbaugh, and obviously a connection between Ross, the owner, and the Harbaugh family. So
yeah,
there's it's going to come down. Nobody ever talks about this, but most of these coaches are married, if not all of them. And the coaches that are older and they've grown up kids, and especially somebody like Harbaugh that's probably in his 60s, I would guess. Look at his wife and say, well, where would you like to live? And the wife makes a decision, and you got to listen to the wife a little bit. So maybe the wife says, well, I'd like to live in South Beach instead of Green Bay or Buffalo, or, that's an understandable decision, especially as you get older. So nobody ever talks about that, but it's a real thing. I mean, anybody that's got a wife knows that you got to keep the wife happy or you're not going to have a happy life. So happy wife, happy life.
Exactly.
So I'm thinking that when they saw Harbaugh get fired, Ross said, nah, I got an inside track because I know that family and maybe we can get him, but I just need to get rid of our guy.
Why did he wait this long, Jim, to do it? I mean, he could have been part of the Black Monday head chopping.
I think it was all because of Harbaugh's availability.
Well, Harbaugh became available Monday. You would think that maybe he would have done this on Tuesday. Let McDonald.
Well, there might have been some talk between the families, and not really something that came out in the media. As soon as they got fired, or maybe even Harbaugh knew that he was going to go there in the beginning, and even before he got fired.
Or maybe Harbaugh said, I'm going to take a year off and, I'm not going to announce it yet. And, he'll enjoy being, teased or offered all these jobs. And so maybe he and, the owner had some discussions and just said, let Harbaugh said, let me think it over a few days. I would have to imagine that Harbaugh probably gave a positive response to the owner because the owner does like McDaniel and could have fired him, but he announced the other day he was coming back. So I would not be surprised if Harbaugh gave some indications that all things being relatively equal in terms of offers and control and all that, he'll be going to Miami.
He'd rather be in Miami than New York. I understand.
Yeah.
Or Cleveland. Or Cleveland. Yeah. The Browns, I think, had an interest in. I got to think, Greg, would you think he is the most desirable potential head coach right now on the market?
Oh, yeah, it's not even close. And that's probably why I agree with Andy. I don't think there's any doubt that they decided to move on from McDaniels solely because they feel confident that Harbaugh will probably be their man. Like you said, there's a big connection there. Ross was a University of Michigan grad. That's where the connection really lies. There was talk years ago that Jim Harbaugh would be a good candidate to be the coach there at one point, but it just never worked out. He stood at Michigan and the hiring process just wasn't where it needed to be like it is now for John Harbaugh. So right. I would be surprised if John Harbaugh doesn't end up in Miami. Before we move on, because I know we only have about 15 or 20 minutes left to cover NFL, and we have a lot of games, and we also want to get everybody's predictions on the playoffs. You mentioned losing streaks at the end of the regular season. As soon as you did that, boom, as a Jet fan, I remember a losing streak at the end of the season. The Jets had one. They were 10-1 back in the 86 season. They lost their last 5 games to go to 10-6, lost in their last game of the regular season, 52-21, and came back in the wild card game to beat the Chiefs. Then had the lead over the Cleveland Browns in the divisional round of the playoffs until Mark Gastineau had that infamous roughing the passer penalty on Bernie Kosar to keep the drive alive. And the Browns beat the Jets in overtime and went on, of course, to play in that infamous John Elway Cleveland Browns championship game back in 1986.
Was that the last time the Jets made the playoffs?
No, that was a long time ago. That was
I
86.
understand. I'm just being facetious. That's all.
Okay. Yeah, no.
By the way,
Mark,
Pittsburgh was in that same situation last year. They lost exactly their last 4 regular season games and then lost to Baltimore in that wild card game.
Correct. And Andy, just to answer your question more succinctly, teams who enter on a 2-game exact losing streak into the playoffs, they are 15-3 straight up and 14-4 against the spread when they're at home. That'll apply both to Chicago and Carolina this weekend as well. Right. Okay, guys, let's take a look at this playoff card here. I know we want to do a little bit more roundabout. We'll get into one more game, and then I'm going to ask everybody what they're personally looking at in this particular contest. Philadelphia, San Francisco, the defending Super Bowl champions hosting the San Francisco 49ers, who I read today have been the most injured football team in the National Football League the last 10 years combined. The team just cannot get out of their way as far as injuries are concerned. Andy, what do you think? Eagles, 49ers?
I think the Eagles, as defending champions, number one, they were the target of every team they played this year because it's the defending Super Bowl champs, and it's a way to measure yourself. And the fact that they ended up winning 10, 11 games this year. What were they? They were 11-6. San Francisco 12-5. San Francisco, despite playing both Seattle and the Rams twice, did have a relatively soft schedule overall. The Eagles a little bit better than that. They are really in their division. The Dallas and Washington and the Giants really didn't provide much in the way of strong competition. I kind of think Philadelphia managed its workload throughout the season because of the toll that all those playoff games have taken on them over the past 5 or 6 years since they've been a regular playoff team. And I think that we haven't seen the best out of Philadelphia yet. The line, it can be surprisingly high, but the 49ers did have some decent statistics, even though they don't rank as highly as you might like. They actually rank in terms of yards per game on offense. I think the numbers are fairly close between the two teams. I'm trying to find it right here, but nonetheless, I look for a good effort out of the Eagles. I have them winning this game 27-16. I think it stays under the total. I think that the injuries that the 49ers have finally, catch up with them. We don't know about Trent Williams, his status yet. Philadelphia seems to be fully healthy on defense, and I think that's something that is the big difference in this game, the edge that Philadelphia has defensively as far as that goes. We know about Warner possibly coming back for the NFC Championship game for the 49ers, but that's 3 weeks down the road or 2 weeks down the road. So I'm on the Eagles in this game. And as with many of these, most of these games, I look for this to be a low-scoring weekend overall.
Low-scoring weekend, Andy Iskoe says, likes the Philadelphia Eagles in the contest. Happens to pair up the number 6 seeded San Francisco 49ers, that were 3 seeded Eagles. And the reason I'm calling that out, guys, is 6 seeds have dominated 3 seeds at the window to the point spread in the NFL football playoffs. 28-17-1 to the spread are the 6 seeds over the 3 seeds. So Philadelphia might have to get their act in gear here together.
And they're probably always underdogs too, like San Francisco.
They probably are. Yeah, exactly right. So let's go around the table here. Greg, I'm going to ask you first. What NFL football playoff game catches your attention the most?
That would be the Buffalo-Jacksonville game. I believe that if the Bills can get past Jacksonville, I think they're going to make it to the Super Bowl. They got to get through that first game. They got to get their feet wet. They get, you just got to get on a little bit of a roll and get that confidence going, and And I actually, that's the way I'm going to go too. I just think this is going to turn out to be a blessing for this team, that there's no pressure on them as there has been before. There would have been monumental pressure without Patrick Mahomes and Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson. Had the Bills been the one seed at home, everybody would have been picking the Bills. All the pressure would have, you have to win. You've got to win. And people are still saying a little bit of that, but it's not as loud as it is because they're a road team in the playoffs in the wild card round. And I think that's going to benefit them. So I'm really intrigued by that one. And I think the Bills are going to be a really interesting play this postseason.
The handicapping, I guess, paragraph or phrase would be experience versus momentum.
That's what it would be, Andy. Exactly. That's how you would best describe it. On the Chinese menu, do you want to order experience or do you want momentum? I'll take one from column B. Okay.
I'll take the egg.
The thing that concerns me in the game, though, Greg, is this. This Buffalo Rush defense is horrendous, and Jacksonville can run the football. In fact, if you take a look, this year, 9 times they ran the ball for 100 or more yards. Jacksonville did, and they won 8 of those games straight up on the scoreboard. Is the concern about the Buffalo Rush defense, is that concerning to you any at all?
Of course. We talked about it the last couple of weeks.
Yes.
The reason why I'm willing to bypass that is just because they have the best player in the NFL right now in these playoffs, and that's Josh Allen. And I'm not expecting this to be a low-scoring game. I just think when it comes down to it, it's going to be a high-scoring game. It's going to come down to the fourth quarter. And who do I trust more? It's going to be Josh Allen.
Josh Allen over Trevor Lawrence. Jim, what game catches your fancy the most this weekend?
Boy, all of them. It's other than the Rams, Carolina, look at how low these lines are. And the only reason that the Philadelphia line keeps going up, I've seen 5.5s now, and if you see 5.5, you're going to end up seeing 6, is because of the injuries to San Francisco. And I have to ask Greg, I've heard some things. I'd like to know if Greg heard anything about the offensive lineman for San Francisco, the wide receiver for San Francisco, and basically the overall injury situation with the Niners.
Yeah, it's actually the latest word is actually not looking promising for Trent Williams. That's the latest word, is that he's still being held out as far as practice, which is not a good sign. Pearsall's a good player, but he's been banged up all season. So I wouldn't really, and even if he plays in the game, he's not going to be 100%. I wouldn't worry about that. I would worry about Trent Williams because look what happened in the Seattle game. I mean, when he was taken out of that game, didn't play in the game, boy, they just had no chance with that Seattle defense. That offensive line is going to have serious issues next season if Trent Williams decides to retire because he's at that age. It's about time he does retire. But yeah, it's at this point, it's early. You do get the feeling that if he can play, if he can even get close to playing, that he's the type of warrior that'll get out there and do it. But so far at this stage, there's only a couple of days left. It's 50-50 at best.
Well, San Francisco would be what I call, guys, and I do a thing called mission teams. I do it in college football. I do it in the NFL as well. And a mission team is simply a team that made the playoffs or a college bowl game 3 years in a row, had a losing season, and they come back the next year. They come back the next year on a mission to get back to where they were. This year's mission team is the San Francisco 49ers, who had that losing record last year. And they've also, like the city of brotherly love, the last 6 times they played in Philadelphia, they've gone 5-1 straight up and against the spread. So the question becomes the injury factor here, and that's where the line is obviously being predicated upon. I mentioned about how beat up they've been over the last decade. In the last decade, they've had 8 Achilles injuries. The league average over that same period of time has been 2.3, but Frisco has suffered 8 of them. So they are indeed a team that is really marked, I guess, for injuries. So, Jim, any game that you're going to go to, or you were just asking about the Frisco game in particular?
Well, I was asking about that. And by the way, the one loss that they had against Philadelphia was a couple of years ago in the playoffs where they lost all their quarterbacks and they had no quarterback.
Yeah,
that was and I don't know, was that the year that Philadelphia won the Super Bowl or they lost the Super Bowl that year?
I think they lost to Kansas. It might have been the year they lost that, 38-35 game?
You're right, Andy. Andy is our AI because he remembers everything.
Or I know where to look very quickly.
Yeah, that's true too. Well, I think that they're all interesting to me. I mean, other than the Chicago, not really. I mean, not Chicago, but the Panthers not really having a good chance to win the game. Every other game, any one of these teams, favorite or dog, could win. If you look at the parity within these lines, other than the line move on Philadelphia because of the injuries with San Francisco, all these lines are 3.5, 1.5. It's really a coin flip for all of them. Now, I like this little angle that I don't know if it's an angle or not, but it's something that's worked for me over the years. Houston is an indoor team playing outdoors in very cold weather on Monday night. Now, I don't go back in history too much, but Pittsburgh has done very well on Mondays. Tomlin has done very well in games that God only knows how he wins, because they're 10-7 and nobody thinks they should ever win a game, but they do. And I don't know, 15, 16 years with a positive winning record. You got a 42-year-old quarterback. And here you got a team at home where earlier, I've seen some 3.5s and easily cheaply buy to 4. Now Houston's 3-point favorite on the road with better defense, no question about it. Their defense is incredible, but you have a very smart and very capable quarterback if you can keep him standing up in Pittsburgh and Aaron Rodgers. I don't believe that Houston, under these conditions, should be that big of a favorite.
It's a great point you bring out there, Jim, about the dome factor being in Pittsburgh on a Monday night.
And 30 degrees.
Yeah, rather frigid up there. No question about that. I agree with you. I think Pittsburgh is a real live dog in this football game.
That's what I'm looking at as my.
Let me ask you a question surrounding that. Do you think the cold temperatures affect the offense more or the defense more? I think they affect the offense more because the defense just has to go out and make tackles and everything, and the offense has to execute timing. And the reason Houston's got that outstanding defense and an offense that, is very, very mediocre, that, they'll be affected, but big deal. They don't do much anyway.
I know one thing, they've all played 17 games. Every one of them, every player on the team, on every team is banged up, have injuries, sore knees, sore shoulders, sore elbows, sore hands. They've all been, it's a tough league. And as the weather is cold, everybody tightens up. All the muscles, all the joints tighten up. Not everybody on each team is a kid. Some of them are mature in their 30s, and you wear out a little bit more playing football. I think the cold weather affects everybody. But these guys are tough. They're tough guys, and they're used to doing things like this. Houston is less likely to do well because they practice indoors, they play indoors most of the year, and they're not really used to cold weather. I prefer the teams that used to cold weather than one that's not. And I don't agree with this line. I think the game should be more like pick'em. They're not that much different. You have which quarterback would you want? Stroud with the same offensive line as or Rodgers?
Stroud with 3 playoff career starts and Rodgers with 21, Jim.
Yeah.
Yes. And likely it could be his last one. And so that, he played pretty damn well against the Ravens the other night. He did produce. And the Ravens aren't dog meat. Maybe they have flaws here and there, but I don't agree with this line at all. I think it's at least 3 points off. It should be a pick 'em or no worse than that.
By the way, when they played at Kansas City back in December, the temperature was 27 degrees, and the Texans pulled a little upset in that one. And I think they have a couple of other late season games where they played on the road in places where the where the temperature was not in the 40s or 50s. The other thing, and I know they were both at home, but Houston, they've had Ryan, the coach, D'Amico Ryan and C.J. Stroud both arrived in 2023, and they won their first playoff games each of those 2 years, albeit at home, but they still have the experience of being able to win playoff games despite their relative inexperience compared to a team like the Steelers.
I would like to say this. If Houston wins this game and they don't suffer any significant injuries, they are a Super Bowl contender.
Absolutely.
Okay. I mean, that's how, what I'm saying is they're not a bad team. They're a very good team. And if they build the confidence by winning this game, going into the next, I don't care who they play. They're in the AFC. Their defense is incredible. And I like D'Amico Ryans, and I like Stroud, and I like a lot of things about them.
What you don't like is the line this week, is what you're saying.
I don't like the situation here. I think the situation favors Pittsburgh. They're very good on Monday nights. You got Rodgers with all this experience. You got Tomlin, who knows how to win games with magic. I don't know how he does it, but he does it. But if they win this game, Houston could be very, very dangerous going forward.
Great call, and I agree 100% with that logic, Jim. Number one defense in the National Football League, a lot of young talent with Houston, and it could be a momentum game for them to spring forward.
And I think by the same token, if Pittsburgh wins this game, they might well be one and done because they go on the road after that.
Oh, I agree with that. Absolutely.
So, Andy, who is your game that catches your fancy the most? Which game are you going to give our listeners out there for them to look at from Andy Iskoe?
Well, I keep going back to New England and the Chargers. The Chargers were my pick at the start of the season to make it in the Super Bowl, or at least one of the 2 or 3 that I favored there. They had they had the bad loss at Jacksonville. That's like their one-off game when they lost, but they've generally fared very well. And again, I always like Harbaugh and what he's been able to do. Remember, as much as the 49ers have been beset by injuries this year, the Chargers have been beset by injuries along that offensive line all year. In fact, it began in training camp when Slater was injured and out for the season. And then Alt came in, played a few games, sat out, came back, got injured. He's out for the season. The fact that they've been able to do as well as they have, the fact that Justin Herbert has been sacked 54 times this year and pressured, I think, something like 268 times, something along those lines, and to still have the record and the results that they have, I think this is a dangerous team going up against New England and a quarterback in Drake May, who, again, we question the competition. He's also making his first playoff start of his career. Now, the same could be true of Caleb Williams, and I think there's one other quarterback that's making his first playoff start. Bryce Young of the Panthers. I would not be shocked, despite the going from west to east and playing in the cold conditions. I would not be shocked, especially with their recent failures in the playoffs, including last year. Harbaugh, remember, in his second year, he took a San Francisco 49er team to the Super Bowl where they lost to brother Jim, or John rather. And I could see the Chargers making a run here. I want to see if this line goes up to 4, because if it does, I will definitely be on the Chargers, and I probably will be at plus 3.5.
Andy Iskoe, the LA Chargers, for his call on the show here today. I agree with that call as well, Andy. I love the fact that Jim Harbaugh in his career, when his team's riding a 2-game losing streak, they're 7-1 straight up and 6-1 to the number. Doesn't seldom let 3 games in a row deter him from his mission. He's been a really, really good head coach in the National Football League.
He's one of the half dozen or so coaches, maybe that's a lot, that you look to back more than go against.
There's no question. Yes, exactly.
Mark, I'd like to ask you a question.
Yes.
Why do so many people criticize Herbert? I happen to like Herbert a lot. I think he's a tremendous athlete, tremendous quarterback that's had not too much of a chance. I mean, he had Staley there as a coach. That was awful.
And he's very tough.
Yeah,
he's more than tough, Andy. He's taken more hits than any quarterback in the National Football League since he entered the league.
Yeah,
but he keeps getting up and he keeps playing.
He's a tough guy, and he's actually pretty good.
Yes, he's damn good. Okay.
I don't know. So many people criticize this guy. I don't get it.
Well, I think the criticism is just about one game, and that's all it's about mainly. It's about last year's playoff game. That's it. And it just happened to be the biggest game of his career. So it's going to stick with him, which I think is a good thing if you want to take the Chargers, because you know how important this game is for him to get that bad taste out of his mouth after what happened last year. I'm also against the Patriots here because the Patriots can say all they like about team camaraderie and we're together, but you don't have these two serious off the field stories come out within a couple of days and say it's not a distraction. I'm sorry, you can't disguise it any way, shape, or it is a distraction. And it's not just a distraction. It's actually, to me, the way the Patriots have handled this, I'm not sure, again, I think it's one of those things. If you're a Patriot fan, you're probably fine. If you're not a Patriot fan, then you're wondering why they've handled it a certain way, because none of these guys have been reprimanded in any way. We'll see how the court system plays out, so forth and so on. And you know what it's all about. It's about winning football games, whether or not one of these players punched a girl or whatever they're being accused of or not. They just don't care. They care about wins and losses. So it's a distraction. And then Chargers also come into this game with wins in all 4 as a road dog this year. So they are 4-0 straight up as a road dog this season. So
they were a favorite at Jacksonville.
I don't know what. Yes, correct. They were.
Okay,
yes.
Small favorite.
Yes, and keep in mind, even though it looks like Harold Landry, Spillane, the two important guys on defense, were limited in practice this week, which is good news. Even if they play, they have not played in several weeks. These are 2 of their top defensive players, and they have not been playing with. And if they come out and play, they're not 100%, and the Chargers have to take advantage of that.
I personally feel, guys, I think the Chargers are going to find their way into the AFC Championship game this year. I think they're a real under the radar type team. And if they get out of, in this particular football game, out of New England alive, I think they catapult into the divisional round, and I think they take it right into the championship game. There's a lot to like about the Chargers. I think they're just sitting back waiting for the playoffs to begin.
One of our comments, imagine how good the Chargers would be if they have $50 million in O-linemen weren't in the hospital and physical therapy.
That's true. That all goes to that Herbert taking more hits than any quarterback since he's been in the league.
I don't get why they keep criticizing this guy. I think he's done a tremendous job.
He's got the ability, Jim, to be a Hall of Fame quarterback.
I agree.
He's got the skills and the mindset. He's certainly intelligent enough. I think he has a doctorate degree, doesn't he, Andy? Did he graduate with a doctorate?
I don't recall about that, but he certainly has the demeanor, the poise, and the toughness that you like in a leader, in a quarterback of a team that has the talent to reach the Super Bowl. And again, remember, they've played through a lot of adversity this year. That's not to make any excuses. San Francisco did the same thing, and I think that if it's the 49ers against the Chargers in the Super Bowl, they won't play the national anthem. They'll play the theme from MASH.
Well, we only have a little bit of time left, so
that's the best line of the show, Andy. Thank you,
Greg. You should have tipped Greg off on that, Andy. He could have queued that up when you mentioned it.
And we'll
do it in our Super Bowl preview if it's the Chargers and the 49ers.
Okay, good.
So I'd like to get everybody's predictions before the playoffs begin. And Mark, have you tipped your prediction on who you're going to pick at least one team to be in the AFC Championship game?
That would be the LA Chargers.
Okay, so who do you like? Let's get everybody's picks for the championship game in both conferences.
Well, they got to play somebody, Mark. Who they're going to play?
Oh, you're talking about who their opponent is going to be. Okay.
Sure.
Coming in off of. I really don't give that a lot of thought because I focus in on the team that I like, and I'm just whoever happens to fall on their path is going to be that.
We also have to take a look at the pairings as far as now. What's the rule if a seven upsets a 4?
They reseed.
They do reseed. Okay, yes. Yeah. So we don't even know the path to the championship for the Super Bowl.
No,
we can pick Super Bowl winner and loser, but I don't think we can pick conference matchup because we don't know what the path will be.
Well, I mean, I'm going to pick the Chargers and Buffalo in the AFC Championship game, and in the NFC, I'm going to go ahead and take the Rams going up against Seattle. So that's going to be my picks. Because you're right. You have to go through it. If you're not going to go through it, then you're going to just have to pick Super Bowl champs. So if you want to do
those were exactly the same. Those were exactly the ones I was going to use. Buffalo.
Okay. Well, that's bad then. I think we're in trouble.
It could be, but no, Buffalo against the Chargers.
Yeah. So
and Seattle and the Rams, they've been 1-2 in my power rating since probably mid-October.
And taking a look to see what the latest Super Bowl odds are, if you want to try to take advantage of any of these futures at this point in time. Of course, you got Seattle and the Rams as the heavy favorites, but the Bills are 10-1.
Jacksonville's a good price.
Houston and Jacksonville, and it does look like if Jacksonville and Houston win, it looks like they might match up with each other in the next round. So that's very possible.
What are their prices you're showing?
12 and 13
12,
to 1.
1 and 13, yeah. Those are good prices for both.
Chargers are 30-1. So if you think they could make it far, then 30-1 is not bad. And here are the rest. So,
well, I would have to put if I had to pair somebody up against the Chargers, I do not like Buffalo, and meaning that I like Jacksonville. And if Jacksonville wins this game, what would that be, Andy? 9 consecutive wins and covers in a row for this team?
Jacksonville, what I believe, 10.
It would be 10.
And Houston, I think, is at 9.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I think Houston is at 8, and Jacksonville is at 9 right now.
Okay, so to me, then it would come down to either Houston or Jacksonville to take on the Chargers. But they've got to.
The Chargers would play Denver if they beat no matter what. If they beat New England, they're going to play Denver.
Well, then that would be
as the number 7 seed, yeah. 7 plays 1.
Yeah.
As well, all right, as that pairing then.
And that's why Jacksonville would play Houston if they both won.
Super Bowl, I'll put the Chargers up against the Rams. I'll make it an all LA Super Bowl.
Oh, I so hope you are right, because I played that exact both ways, and there's like prices of like 250 to 1.
Wow, nice. Jim, I thought you did too, or something. You mentioned something about that, didn't you?
I got so many tickets, I don't know what I have anymore. But I could see the Chargers going up against Jacksonville in the AFC Championship game. That would be actually, not many of us have talked about the number 1 seed in the AFC, Denver, and nobody's even mentioned them.
By the way, let me mention it's Houston has the 9-game winning streak. Oddly enough, or ironically enough, it began when they were down 29-10 against Jacksonville, and they came back to win that game back in early November.
Wow.
So Jacksonville, I think, is at 8 right now.
Well, Denver's the number 1 seed. They got the bye. As I mentioned, we opened the show up with. They did a lot of it against backup quarterbacks, which I don't care for at all. And I think they can get exposed. I don't think their offense is anything special. Since they erupted for 44 points against Dallas, that was back in the end of October, they haven't scored more than 27 points in any other game since. I think the offense is beatable. That's one of the reasons I'm going to fade them, but I think is a better team in the Chargers.
Nix has been very inconsistent.
Yes,
right?
he has. Yes.
Yeah.
As far as the weather, there are several places that it's interesting for the Carolina-Tampa Bay game last week when we were doing our show. They said, well, there's a small chance of rain for the Carolina-Tampa Bay game, and all it did was rain. It rained the entire game. So there are several games that have a similar slight chance of snow or rain. But the one game that it looks like it will definitely rain is the first game. Now it's the Rams in Carolina. So that's not what the Rams want to see. The Rams do not want to see any weather issues when you're the heavy favorite in a football game. But it looks like they're going to get quite a bit of rain in Carolina for that matchup.
Greg, the weather in Chicago does not look very favorable to me.
Yeah, there is a chance of snow in that game. Matter of fact, I think the latest is about 40%, which is not bad if you're looking for a really good snow game. We'd all love to see a Green Bay Chicago snow game. No question about it.
The wind is 17 miles an hour, and
yes.
I thought the gusts are over 30 miles an hour, which is very that can really disrupt the game.
Yeah, it wouldn't be an advantage for either team necessarily, but it would be great for us watching a nice old-fashioned rivalry in the snow and the wind. So both teams can run the football. So I don't think.
And remember, both of those meetings went down to the final play
advantage
between Green Bay and Chicago.
Well,
the interception Caleb Williams threw that could have tied the game, and then, of course, the overtime touchdown that they had in the rematch.
When you look at these lines, so 3-3-1-1. I mean, they're all predicted to be pretty close.
So who do you got playing in the Super Bowl here right now, Jim, as we're getting close?
Well, I like the Rams or Seattle to get there. In the championship game, I'd like to see those two teams meet. And whoever wins that game would win the Super Bowl against either Jacksonville or
Houston,
the Chargers.
Buffalo.
Or Houston, right.
Or Houston, yeah. See, I mean, I'm telling you, I like Houston a lot as a team. I just don't like the spot they're in. That's kind of the way I'm looking at it. It's kind of a weird situation. I think Houston's very, very dangerous, but not in this particular spot.
Who would you play, Jim, if that game were a pick'em in Pittsburgh?
I just
if you played either side.
Well, it's a damn good question, Andy, and I wish you would not have asked that.
And you don't have to answer, Jim, because they're not.
hypothetical.
Not unless, well, let's. Well, no, I was going to say T.J. Watt, of course, is back now.
Well,
And
let
if
me
he
tell
were
you
out,
this.
that would only
I
inflict
would-
mine the other way.
If I didn't play a side, I'd play a teaser with Pittsburgh and line it up with somebody else, either two teams at 10 points, or I'd look for the under to play because I really do think it's probably an underplay.
Yeah, I think another reason too is just all you had to do was take a look at what happened a week prior. Pittsburgh went up against Cleveland's defense, and Aaron Rodgers was under duress the whole day, and they couldn't do anything. So now they're going to play a very similar, really tough defense. And we saw what happened when Aaron Rodgers had all the time in the world to throw the football in the game against Baltimore. He was dangerous.
And
even without DK Metcalf.
And my good friend Scott Pritchard says, "See the cashier."
Yeah. Cut to the chase.
That's a great line. I love it.
Yes.
He does that all the time.
See the cashier.
Yeah.
All right, Jimmy, we're going to move it over to the college football side of things. You're more than welcome to sit in with us if you'd like. You have the time. You want to hear a little bit about what we're going to talk. Not a lot of games, only 2 on tap. So you make the decision.
I'm going to just put it on mute and listen to you guys.
All right, sounds great. Okay, guys, let's do it. Let's talk about
And good luck, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. And
College
good luck to you
football.
on the weekend.
College football semifinal round is here, guys. Maybe not the 4 teams that everybody thought it would be. I think 2 of the 4 are teams that people maybe projected. A little bit of a surprise here on Miami of Florida, and a big surprise perhaps on Ole Miss. I don't know why Ole Miss would be a bigger surprise than Miami because they actually have the better record going into the football game. Greg, what's your take here on this first semifinal matchup round between Miami and Ole Miss?
Well, my 2 long shots are in there, so I'm really, really happy. One of them gets in, and I'll have a good amount of money at stake. Unfortunately, it could be against an undefeated team, but you never know. So yeah, I'm really torn with this game because to me, even though I'm going to side with Miami, I think they are the better team. They're playing their best football of the season. The defense has been phenomenal. I don't think that's going to change against Ole Miss. Ole Miss has not played against a defense like this all season. And
Georgia?
Miami is much better than Georgia's defense, much better. And remember, Georgia also had a couple of guys banged up.
But Miami, who did Miami play aside from Notre Dame? Now, I'm taking nothing away from Texas A&M and Ohio State. Those were outstanding performances.
That's the thing. I mean, they're over their 6-game winning streak. They've outscored their opponents 185-58. And that includes, of course, the 2 playoff games, shutting down Texas A&M and Ohio State. So they proved it right there against those 2 teams, one on the road, one against one of the top teams in the country. Look, but Ole Miss is coming in with all of that thing that we talked about in the beginning of the playoffs, very similar to when I mentioned the history dating back to my Michigan Wolverines in basketball, when Fisher came in, replaced the head coach, and took the team to win a national championship. It happens.
That was
Doesn't happen a
Bill
lot.
Frieder.
Bill Frieder.
That was Bill Frieder,
replaced
right?
Fisher. Yes.
And Bo said, we're going to be coached by a Michigan man.
Yes. And he did
Great
it.
quote.
And he all the way to won the championship against Seton Hall. And so we just made sure that was out there. And so far they're heading in that direction. And so sometimes the team of destiny, that's a team you just don't want to mess with. And Trinidad Chambliss has been amazing. So that does worry me if I'm a Miami fan. But I'm going to side with Miami. I think they're the better team, but Ole Miss is just awfully dangerous.
Andy, your follow-up on that.
Let me see. Ole Miss, what are they, 13-1 this year?
Yes, they are.
Okay. That means over the last 3 seasons, Ole Miss is 13, 23, 34-6 straight up. So it's not as though this Ole Miss team is a one-season wonder, but they've been overshadowed by Alabama and Georgia to a certain extent, Texas A&M, Texas to a certain extent last year. So this is a team that has been building nicely. And again, I liked Ole Miss at the start of the playoffs. Wasn't quite sure how far they would go because we didn't know how they would react to the Lane Kiffin situation. And once I saw what happened in that second game against, the rematch, the second time they played Tulane, I got a lot more convinced that this may be indeed not just a team of destiny, but a very good team that could win it just on their own, even without the distractions. It was very easy considering how they beat Tulane in the regular season meeting. I think it was like 45-10. Whether you had the Kiffin situation or not, it would have been very easy for Ole Miss to overlook Tulane. Hey, we beat this team earlier. We played in the SEC. They took charge of that game really in the first quarter and never let up, and they won impressively, even with the distractions. So that told me that this is a team that, with all the distractions, Golding, the new coach, was able to get these guys to focus in a situation where it would have been natural for them not to focus because they'd be thinking about playing Georgia next. And I think that also was part of the reason why we have the situation with Kiffin and the assistant coaches, because he never expected his players to beat Georgia, so he didn't have to worry about the coaches being gone for more than that one game against Tulane. So I like what I saw. I like the effort that they put in last week. Once again, in a situation they fell behind, they rallied, and unlike the game that they played in Georgia where they led. What was it? I think 35-26 entering the fourth quarter. They did not surrender the lead here. They came back and ended up extending it actually a little bit for a bit after they finally got the lead. I like Ole Miss. Nothing against Miami. I do think that Ole Miss played overall in the regular season a more difficult schedule. Miami was outstanding defensively, but you got to be a little concerned offensively about Miami. Now, they did it against certainly a very good defense. I almost throw out much of that Texas A&M game because those were horrible conditions with the winds and everything. And, that was a game 10-3. I'm not going to say anything there, but I think in the matchup of quarterbacks, I'd prefer going with Chambliss rather than Carson Beck. Although, I'll be fair, and I did back Miami both against A&M and against Ohio State. I thought they would beat A&M. I did not expect them to beat Ohio State, but I did expect them to cover. I thought that would be a close game. So Miami's done nothing wrong. They didn't quite do what Ohio State did last year after they lost to Michigan, because Ohio State was just played like almost flawless football throughout the playoffs. Miami still played extremely good football. And I do think the fact that, they've got a little chip on their shoulders, Ole Miss, saying, hey, we had confidence we could beat Georgia because of the first time we played them. We just came up short. Maybe we ran out of gas. Maybe we got a little overconfident in them when they're starting the fourth quarter saying, hey, we got a nice lead on Georgia. We're going to win this game. They don't have that right now. So I like Ole Miss here. I expect them to win this game. And we will see. Well, we're guaranteed of having one team in the Big Ten going for a third straight national championship for the Big Ten Conference.
Well, that would be good. That would be good for the Big Ten anyway, but I'm more concerned about the SEC and their disappointing season they've had in the bowls here thus far this year, but it hasn't been due to Ole Miss.
Not at all.
That's for sure. The Rebels have been there, answered both bells, wins and covers in both games. Miami of Florida comes in here off a pair of back-to-back upset wins. There hasn't been a team that's won 3 times in a row as underdogs in the college football playoff since the inception.
That's because this is only the second year of it.
Well,
the other college football playoffs were 2 or 4 teams.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Right.
So there was never an opportunity before this year.
Right, but they have never done that, and that's exactly the role Miami's in. They're in foreign territory here. The thing that I don't like about Miami is the fact that they were out-yarded in both of those victories. Sometimes it leads to a lot of false confidence, and you don't take false confidence into a team like Ole Miss, who is every bit as good in the stats as they are on the playing field. 13-1 straight up. They've won the yards 10 of the last 11 football games convincingly, I might add. I'm going to be with Ole Miss in this football game here. I love the fact that they're using Lane Kiffin to chew on, and they're using him as their reason to get up for these football games. They sounded off already on him. I can't believe that Lane Kiffin is making money off Ole Miss's success in the college football playoff. He's already put $500,000 in his bank account. I think that's sinful, but the players don't care. All the players want to do is win football games, and I think the wrong team is favored here. That's me personally. But let's look at the second game here on tap in what will be what bowl game is this? The Chick-fil-A.
The Nobody Cares Bowl.
The Nobody Cares Bowl? Yeah. I think they care about these two teams, though.
The playoffs. That's all we care about. Nobody cares about the bowl.
This is the one that's in Atlanta.
Yeah, the Peach Bowl.
Peach Bowl.
Yes, the Peach Bowl, right. Two great teams here, unquestionably. Looking at Oregon and Indiana. Greg, which side of this football game are you going to?
Yeah, I've got to go towards Indiana in this one. I know it's going to be tough to beat the same team, a good team, twice. It's just I don't know if I trust Dante Moore at this spot. And this is the reason why I think Dante Moore is probably going to come back again next year. I don't know if he's a complete player. He seems to struggle a little bit too much when they play these top teams. He struggled a lot last week against Texas Tech. He was just very fortunate that Texas Tech had no offense. Indiana, though, has an offense. I am still, wondering whether Indiana, how are they going to look now that they're going to play a real team? Because they lost their two top pass rushers this season. Didn't have to worry about that with Alabama. So I'm not worried about that.
Did they play in the first meeting? Those two defensive players?
At least one of them did. Yeah.
Because I know that was, I think, late September, early October.
Yeah, I don't know if they both played at the same time, but at least one played. So I'd have to check. And it does look like Oregon. Well, the bottom line is too, injury-wise, Oregon is going to be without one of their top two running backs. Jordan Davidson's out. So he's not their number one running back. That's Noah Whittington, but still, Davidson's a big part of that running game, and he's out. And he led the team in touchdowns with 15. So he's not going to be in the game. So that can't help. I think what the only thing that I would look at with Oregon, if you want to, I mean, they are plus 150 on the money line. That's the only thing I like, is that if you want to try to take a good team with a decent money line number, Oregon is not a bad play. But I just trust Indiana more at this point than I do Oregon.
I'm going to put Greg down for Indiana, the second of his two plays in this weekend's semifinal football games, to go along with Miami and Florida. So Greg's got Miami and Indiana playing for the national championship. Andy, who plays for the national championship coming out of this game?
Well, I'm going to read part of what I wrote this week. Back in October, Indiana won 30-20 at Oregon as a 7-point road dog, outgained the Ducks 326 to 267. That was Oregon's lowest total yards of the season. Their next lowest was the 209 that they gained versus Texas Tech. And the loss Oregon's loss to Indiana was the only game in which the Ducks were outgained this season. Only Iowa held Oregon to less than 21 points this season, 18 in Oregon's 18-6 win. Both teams are noted for their offense, but both also play great defense. Against FBS foes in the regular season, Oregon allowed 252 yards per game, which was number 2, and 15 points per game, which was number 8. Indiana allowed 272 yards per game, which was number 6, and 11.8 points per game, which was number 3. But now, then I would say that we'd see this as a lower than expected game. As Oregon's games total an average of 51.3, Indiana's 51.1, and those averages included blowouts by both teams. So if you take the blowouts that they won by, the total of 47.5, which normally, if you looked at those numbers, say, well, total's 47.5, they average 51, you got to look over. But that, I think, would justify a play perhaps on the under when you take out the games against overmatched opponents. But the thing that was really interesting, and let me just finish this here. Oregon was number 2 versus the pass, while Indiana was number 1 against the run, 81 yards per game. Both teams have nearly identical rushing and passing yards per game. Indiana held 12 of 14 foes to under 90 rushing yards in their games, including the postseason. And that includes allowing Old Dominion in the season opener to rush for 218 yards against the Hoosiers. And that it was still 81 yard per game average. And that was Indiana's 27-14 win versus an Old Dominion team that nobody realized was a good team. They had like 6 or 7 straight losing seasons. They went 10-3 this year, Old Dominion did, and won their bowl game. So that's an even little bit more impressive when you consider what Old Dominion did against Indiana that all the better opponents they faced couldn't do. I like Indiana in this game. I think that they get the win and get the cover. I think the final score I made here was 24-17.
And by the way, I did research for you, Andy, there, and both Kellen Wyatt and Stephen Daly played in the Oregon-Indiana game.
Okay.
Wyatt, who actually had a sack and a half in the game against Oregon, he got injured 2 weeks later and out for the season. Stephen Daly, meanwhile, played all the way until the Big Ten championship game. He had a sack against Ohio State in that game, and that's when he got injured. And so he's out for the season. So both Wyatt and Daly did play, and it looks like Wyatt was a pretty big part of that first game.
Let me mention one thing, since this is a revenge game. This will be the 5th revenge game of this postseason. And so far it's 2-2. The two most noteworthy ones where the avenging team was the winner. Alabama lost to Oklahoma in the regular season. They beat them in the first round of the playoffs. Alabama beat Georgia in the regular season and lost to Georgia in the playoffs. You had Mississippi beat Tulane in the regular season in the playoffs, and then in the most bizarre one of all, the Birmingham Bowl, which they had trouble filling, which was the last bowl pairing announced. 2 Sun Belt teams played for the second time this season, and Georgia Southern for the second time beat Appalachian State. So no real situation as far as revenge goes. Other than, and you almost throw out the Georgia Southern game and to a certain extent the Mississippi game because that, but you're talking about high quality teams, and in the high quality rematches, Alabama, Georgia, Alabama, Oklahoma, you did get the avenging team. That would tend to favor Oregon because you'd have to say both Oregon and Indiana are, well, this year they're probably even better than the Oklahoma, Alabama teams and the Alabama, Georgia teams. So even that being said, I still like Indiana.
Andy, I'm going to follow up on your revenge angle a little bit and twist it up if I may. Okay.
Sure. It's all yours.
I've got a couple different numbers to share with the people out here. You're talking about in either the college bowl games or the conference championship games, the teams that are avenging of same season loss that had a 500 or better record, that's wipes out some of the bad bowl teams that come from the same conference. They are 7-1 against the spread. The loser was earlier this year. And if this team we happen to use is a 600 or better team like Oregon is, they're a perfect 7-0 against the spread. That comes to the Oregon Ducks in this football game. What else comes to the Oregon Ducks in this football game is the fact that they've chewed up and spit out Big Ten opponents this year. They're 11-1-1 against the spread as an underdog. They were favored. Correct me. Yeah, they were favored in the first game, and now this big line swing comes in here because Indiana is almighty and all undefeated. And I tip my hat to them. They've done everything Andy said. These season low yards and points and everything they've done have been absolutely mind blowing. They're coming off of what I feel was the most puzzling loss in the college football bowl games or playoffs this year when Texas Tech completely fell into a coma and didn't even show up in the game against Indiana. But now Indiana's going to go out here in this game against an avenging Oregon football team who at the time they lost, they were on a 41-1 outright win streak at home, and Indiana come in there and made it 41-2. I like the dog in this football game here. I know Indiana's really tough. I don't have a lot of holes I can poke at them other than situations. And the situation to me is Oregon is too good of a football game with a revenge chip on their shoulder in a game of this magnitude to pass up on. Put me down for the Oregon Ducks.
Let me mention something, by the way, just to sort of, you'll find it interesting. Oregon and Indiana, being conference members of this, Big Ten, played 3 common opponents. They were both 3-0 straight up. Oregon was 1-2, Indiana 0-3. Actually, interestingly, 1 game of the 6 went over. The other 5 games stayed under. The average margin of victory: Oregon 7.3, Indiana 10.7.
Wow.
Difference of 3.4, which is exactly what the line is, 3.5.
Wow. You think the odds maker tunes into that maybe, Andy? That's real good stuff on Andy's part to call all that out. Either way, guys, I think we've got 2 must-watch football games for the semifinals this weekend. Friday, the first football game, Ole Miss and Miami. Saturday, taking place.
It's Thursday, Friday.
The first game is Friday,
yeah.
Oregon and Indiana, and then all leads into the National Football League wild count round.
A week from Monday.
A week from Monday, yes.
So that means that we have basically predicted 3 separate championship games.
Yes, we have.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. So one of us is probably going to be right.
I hope I'm wrong.
Well, wait. Which is
At
the one that we didn't
inside.
pick? We didn't pick Miami against Oregon.
That is correct.
But that'll be the one that'll turn out.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, would be a good game.
Yeah, I hope so.
Any of these
Mario
combinations would be good games,
Mario Cristobal going up against his former team.
Yeah.
At home in Miami.
In
too.
Miami.
Yeah.
I'm all for that.
At home in Miami.
That'd be a good one. Yeah, and by the way, keep in mind that we saw the Texas Tech game. I think what gets overlooked too much is that Oregon has some really good defensive players.
Yeah.
I mean, they have got. I mean,
that's why I like the under in this game.
Yeah, they've got pro prospects. They got a true freshman corner who's one of the best freshmen in the country. He just had 2 interceptions in the game against Texas Tech. They've got high draft picks on that side of the ball. So we talk about Dante Moore an awful lot, deservedly so. But if Oregon wins this game, it's probably going to wind up being because of that defense.
Let me ask both of you this question. So we didn't really talk about it before, but Greg brought up a point that now makes it perhaps a little relevant factor. Miami. It's hard to say 1-10. And I had this discussion last night on a podcast I did about motivation in the NFL playoffs. And I say motivation, I don't think that's as huge a factor as a lot of people may think, because what more motivation do you need than, hey, we get a chance to extend our season in the most important game of the year? Sometimes there are little variations of that. But what about the motivation that Miami might have against Mississippi, realizing that, hey, if we win this game, we're playing at home for the national championship. All of our friends and family can come to this game and all that. We're playing it in our backyard. Is that a little bit perhaps extra motivation that perhaps might offset some of the motivation that, the non-fundamental motivation that Ole Miss may have because of the Lane Kiffin situation?
Hey, before we get out of here, guys, a couple of comments here. Is it Tornado, Greg? Can you see who mentioned about the military academy nod that we called to in the Playbook Bowl guide? Congratulations.
Toma 8883.
Toma. Okay, sorry about that, Toma.
Oh, you mean the Navy and Army picks?
Yes, appreciate that. That was nice how strong the military is each and every year in the bowl games. They just come to play each and every time. And I want to thank everybody else who tuned into the show here. It was a great show once again. Not a lot of games on tap, but a lot of information here. Jim Feist from Las Vegas with his insight into the National Football League. Andy Iskoe, AI from Las Vegas with insight on both the college and pro football cards. The same for Greg DePalma from Prime Sports Network. And until next week, when we go into the NFL divisional round of the playoffs and we get into our college football championship game, when we're back next week, this is Marc Lawrence. Remind you to always remember to bet with your head, not over it. And good luck as always.